While we're on this news kind of start to our show today, I wanted to mention that Jason from Over the Cap put together some notes here and an update on Marcus Williams, Sarah. And of course, you and I still have to, at some point this week, get into Jimmy Smith's clips where from last week's pregame show. I had him on prior to Ravens-Browns. And so I just thought that he gave some interesting insight into what he's seen film-wise for Marcus that led to his, of course, benching. And now his future is starting to become a little less murky. You know it's not going to be in Baltimore, especially after the news that Jason shared from Over the Cap earlier today. I think was it yesterday or when was this?
This morning.
Okay, this morning. Yeah. And let me pull it up too, because I think I actually quote tweeted or screenshot the wrong quote tweet from what I was looking for. So here is Jason's tweet from earlier this morning regarding Marcus Williams. The Ravens and him have agreed on a revised contract that will allow them to use a post-June 1 designation on him next season. And as Brian McFarland, Ravens salary cap analyst, added on to, he thanked Jason for the details and says that Williams' $12 million salary was reduced to $2.1 million, which immediately creates $9.9 million in cap space instead of having to wait until June 2nd. They will then get the remaining $2.1 million in cap savings after June 1. The dead money of $6.723 million in both 2025 and 2026 is unchanged, which is obviously the part that the Ravens can't get away from. But at the same time, perhaps the two sides have come together here and obviously are getting ahead of what will be a parting of ways this offseason.
Yeah, so the fact that like Marcus is willing to work with them, I think shows that, you know what, we both know that this we've run this course. Like it's done from both sides. I imagine from Marcus's point of view, he's like, I just need a fresh start. I got to get out of here. I was in New Orleans. I started 72 games, didn't have an injury history. I come here. Suddenly it kind of like piles up in back-to-back seasons. And then in that third season, when I'm finally healthy, the defense is falling apart. Obviously, he was a massive part of that because when they benched him and brought in Ardarius Washington, plenty of things were solved. So on his end, he's like, I can't get out of here soon enough. And you know what? It shows that, you know, they're still working together because that's fine. I'll redo this contract with you because either way, I got paid what I got paid and I'm going to be let go. So he understands it from that point of view. The Ravens know that it's time to move on. That 5-year, $70 million contract did not work at all. I think Marcus Williams has started 31 of a potential 50 some odd games. And part of it, again, due to injury. And then the other part just to not performing well enough. And when you see that you're going to have to pay Kyle Hamilton, guy that you drafted, I saw a projection earlier today that said he'll get a 5-year, $88 million contract, which if he gets a 5-year 88 and Marcus Williams had a 5-year $7 million, which was 3 years ago, and we know the price keeps going up. Yeah, I think Kyle Hamilton is going to be worth it. And then meanwhile, you've got Ardarius Washington, who will be a restricted free agent next year. You could also, you know, choose to try to sign him to a Rashad Bateman type deal where you try to get him for a couple more years on a modest contract. But there was no doubt from either side that this was coming to an end. And I'm happy to hear that they were still working with each other. And I'm happy that the Ravens, Eric DeCosta, will have that money up front in March rather than having to wait till June. But the Ravens will have to deal with $6.7 million dead money in both 25 and 26. So it was a celebrated deal at the time with his injury history being nil and having all those starts, being a free safety. It's exactly what they needed. It was celebrated at the time. But obviously with the 2020 hindsight, it'll go down as not the greatest signing by Eric DeCosta.
Which is rare when they cough up that kind of money and that kind of splash in free agency. Typically there's a surefire confidence, and maybe there was at the time, that he would be the guy that they hoped he would become. And unfortunately that did not end up coming to fruition. I tell you what, Sarah, this is almost too good of a segue to pass up. Do you want to hear what Jimmy had to say on Marcus before we continue?
Yeah, let's do. And I'm just going to say the chat is correct me. It was 4 years, $88 million. They said that was the projection.
Okay. And then just to be clear, You mentioned it the first time. Marcus signed that $70 million deal the first time. The second time back through, you said 7. Just to be clear, though, $70 million, of course, as you said.
70 million. Yep. Yeah, 5 years, 70 million. Marcus Williams. Projection for Kyle Hamilton, 4 years, 88 million. That's right. 4 years, 88 million. Okay.
And here is what the former first-round pick in Baltimore and Super Bowl champion Jimmy Smith had to say about Marcus and some of the film that he had watched prior to the benching. And this was this past weekend before the Ravens-Browns regular season finale at the Be More Around Town pregame show that I do for home games.
Say right now, obviously it's not to Marcus as he is a sorry player or something like that. I didn't know who he was before, and when they brought him in, I obviously did my studying afterwards. Like he's an interception guy. He's the interception guy, so I'm thinking that's what he does. And then when he first got here, he got a lot of interceptions. Really.
Oh, sorry. Can we pause that because now I'm distracted? What was that?
I got so many mention questions about this. Like for the audio only audience, Jimmy waved off some dude to try to get his attention.
He literally waved him off like he was the king to like.
You're hilarious because literally everyone was asking me, and it was simply just one of his boys that he showed up to the tailgate with, who was having himself a good time, and he was interrupting us throughout parts of the interview, and I think Jimmy had finally had enough.
Yeah, because it's like, you know that we're doing a live show here, right? Yeah, so I don't know who this guy was. But he was just wanting to have fun with his friend. That's all he wanted.
And notice, Sarah, too, like as soon as Jimmy waved him off, he understood, right? Message understood.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he left. Did he not come back? Yeah. Just so we can move on from this topic.
Oh yeah, he didn't come back. No.
Okay, he got the message. All right, back to him. So before I got distracted, he's discussing Marcus Williams and his interceptions. Is that it?
Well, he started. Yeah, the beginning of the clip was sort of talking about how initially he was supposed to be the interception guy, and he was early on, and now he's going to get into what happened last year with the shoulder injury. But I think what most people were really interested in hearing is the lack of positional flexibility that Marcus showed this year in particular, which led to his demise.
Gotcha. Okay. Let's
quickly.
continue.
And then when he got his shoulder hurt, the tackling started coming up, and then the tackling kind of came into this year. And one thing I can tell you, like I said, about safeties and John Harbaugh, if you're not a tackling safety, I don't care who you are. I watched him get on Eric Weddle. I watched him get on Ed Reed. I watched him get on every safety that's ever played for the Ravens, as long as I've been there. So when I see the bad angles and I see, I knew immediately like Harbaugh is dying inside because he loves secondary. That's his thing. He loves special teams is his thing, but every day he talks to the secondary.
Yeah, people don't know John Harbaugh was a DB in college.
Yeah,
and he started in. I can't remember if he started as the secondary coach before special teams, but I know he's been a secondary coach in the NFL. Okay, sorry.
Because he loves it. So watching what was going on was more of I bought this. I bought this, so I have to spend my money on this. Yeah. I have to use this person, but I don't know if that person necessarily fit our style of defense. I'm not saying he's a bad player, none of that, because obviously he got $70 million. That's not an easy feat to do. So he showed what he needed to show to get there. But when it came down to actually playing our defense, which our safeties are rotational. You're just not a strong safety. You're just not a free safety. We don't play that here. So you got to be strong safety sometime and you got to be free. And I think that was what I see as a football player. I see like, oh, he's a true free safety. And by true free safety, I mean, he wants to be beat the whole time and just cover deep. When he has to start going down and covering and starting, I didn't see the want to hit people. I didn't see the intent to like cover deep. Like it just, for me, it was like sloppy play.
But what's so interesting is that last year, speaking of want and desire, he played through that shoulder. So why, or did he?
No. So that's what I just said. Yes, I played through a shoulder injury, but I'm not a tackler anyway. I didn't want to tackle him, no way. That sounds bad to say. But when you watch tape and you're watching this year, like I'm a fan now. I get to sit at home and watch the game, and I watch some of the angles he takes, like the one that Jamar Chase has only killed one team in the league.
And he did it twice this year.
He does it every year. No, he does it every year.
Every year. Yeah.
I love Marlon to death. That's my brother. We know that is his toughest matchup.
Was that your first time listening to that specific clip right there?
Yes.
What was your reaction?
I only listened to Brandon Stevens, but it was on the go. Okay, so what I heard him saying is that the reason why he didn't fit in Baltimore was A, he wasn't a tackler. And that's not what you do in Baltimore. And he says it's a John Harbaugh thing, but I got to imagine most coaches are dying inside if your defensive players don't tackle. Then it sounded like Marcus Williams, as you were trying to give him some grace and talk about how tough he is. So you're like, but he played through the injury last year. And Jimmy's more like, well, then he finally had an excuse to not tackle because everybody knew he was dealing with the injury.
That's my
essentially
exact
what he was
interpretation of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so then he comes back without the injury and he's still not tackling. Then he talks about angles, which that one on Chase was bad. And then the final thing he pointed out in just not being a fit is you have to be multiple in the Ravens defense. And he's pointing that out with safeties, but that's everywhere. Outside linebackers, they want you to run. They have Michael Pierce dropping. Okay. You have to be multiple. You have to be multiple because part of the design of the Ravens defense, which we definitely saw with Mike McDonald and they're continuing, is deception. They don't want you to know where the blitz is coming, whether it's coming. Am I coming? Am I dropping back? Am I a strong safety? Am I a free safety? And Hamilton's the king of that. Hamilton can go, strong safety, free safety, slot. I mean, he could go outside. He could be linebacker. Like, he's everywhere. He is Baltimore Ravens defensive dream. And so if that's all that's going on here, not being able to be multiple or not wanting to be, not tackling, and then just bad angles, like that is probably the best. And I don't know football as well as Jimmy Smith, but that's probably the best explanation I've heard as he's just fallen off since having a great start to his career.
We can probably revisit another time his comments on Brandon Stevens and just sort of evaluating where Brandon was, unless you wanted him now.
Just do it. Let's just do the secondary. Yeah. And then we'll get to super chats and then move forward.
Okay, perfect. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Okay. And by the way, this conversation goes over 30 minutes. It's available on my channel, and it was from just this past Saturday. And I obviously really want to say thank you to Jimmy because this was not planned. He showed up to the tailgate with his buddy, as I mentioned, and his son, Jimmy Jr., who's become a star on my show, Sarah, by the way. Like, his son comes on and he ain't afraid. And then all of a sudden his dad sits down and then his son is off to the side and I see him pull up his phone and Jimmy Jr.'s got his YouTube app up and he's in the comment section. Like, he's such a cute kid. He's a great kid. He looks exactly like his dad. He's That's unafraid. Cute. He's fearless. He sits down. He puts the mic on. He's interacting with the chat. So I really enjoyed hanging out with those two. I've done it for a couple of years now. And, of course, you and I have had Jimmy on the channel as well. And he is just an all-around good dude and a great father as well. Here is that second clip. And this has to do with Brandon Stevens, who, of course, finds himself in the middle of a contract year and a big, as we've discussed, big target continues to be on his back.
Great secondary. I think Stevens went through his Marcus Peters phase. Honestly, like, somebody gets targeted, right? I'm not going to target him. I'm not going to target him. That person gets targeted. So sometimes it is the fact that you're not playing as good or the fact that they just say, hey, you know what? We're just going to go at him. He doesn't have enough confidence. So I think Brandon Stevens has probably showed the most of any DB we have. Wow, like, what's the relentless resilience? Because he has been getting targeted. And when they won first down, they come after him. But the fact that we got Tre'Davious White and they kept Brandon starting, lets you know that, like, he's a guy that can keep working towards what he's going to. When the ball gets in the air, he finds that calmness and just makes the play, which he does sometimes. But that's what they target the most. The difference between Brandon Stevens is ball skills. It's not that he's not there. It's not that he's not fast enough. It's not that he won't tackle. He does all those things. But when that ball's in the air and that panic hits your heart at corner, it's a different feeling. The ball hits the air for him. Panic settles in, I think, a little bit, and he doesn't just gently turn around, go up and grab it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's right there. Like, he turns around, the ball hits his elbow. Like, he's not there. It's just when teams are targeting you like that, it's very hard to gain confidence because you're like, every game I'm getting 12 targets.
Yeah.
And they're getting like 8, right? And then you read one thing or somebody says one thing, your confidence goes down. As a cornerback, your confidence is probably, besides your athletic ability, which is number one, I would say your confidence is 1B. Like, you need to be just as confident as you are athletic to play corner. If he's a high draft pick, they give him another year because, it's a contract. You know what I mean?
It's a contract year for him.
Exactly. So he had to battle something that, a lot of corners, you go through this. You go through a part where people think, hey, he's vulnerable, right? And the thing is, once somebody does one thing to you as a corner, they're going to do it to you for the next 5 games. If you can't stop it, they'll do it to you all season. So his thing is not being sticky in coverage. It's not doing it's literally having the calmness and the patience when that ball's in the air to locate it, right? Like once you get on a I'm getting beat, you start playing a little bit more tense, a little tight. And I felt like he went through a little bit of that. I think they brought Tre'Davious in. Tre'Davious had a couple good plays on some fades, right? And then Brandon, all of a sudden, you start seeing Brandon in the game. And I watched, obviously, them the most. I watched Brandon get even more close in tight coverage. Like, I don't agree with every PI that they call on Brandon. But he is the one that they target. Just like Marcus was the one that they targeted a few years ago when it was all of us. It's just, if you have laps in your game, your coverage, your game, they're going to come after you.
Yeah.
So for him, it's like, oh, you're good. You're really good. But I'm always betting 50-50 that when I throw that ball, I don't know if you're going to turn around. And right now, he's 50-50. I don't know if he will. Yeah. I don't know if he. So that I thought was a big improvement in the last 10 weeks because he's now been in the call. If it is the PI, I'm like, I don't know about that one. Before, I'm like, oh, my God, that's bad. Now I'm like, oh, no, he's right there. Like, I can see his growth.
Sarah, the one quote, and I know that was a little bit longer of a clip than what we usually share, but this is what stood out to me from Jimmy on Brandon Stevens. Quote, the ball hits the air for him. Panic settles in, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think a little bit, and he doesn't just gently turn around, go up and grab it. If you have lapses in your game, they're going to come after you. We've seen that. So for him, it's like, oh, you're good. You're really good. But I'm always betting 50-50 that when I throw that ball, I don't know if you're going to turn around. And right now, he's 50-50. That's what stood out to me the most. How about you?
Yeah, that for sure is the money quote. And I agree. And I think that what he's saying is what we've all been saying. Like the Marcus Williams stuff was kind of a new explanation, right? That we hadn't heard. The Brandon Stevens stuff, we could all see this. It's these 50-50 balls. He doesn't have the ball skills. He's not turning around. Although I like the word that he used when he said there's got to be a calmness there. Just be calm. You're right where you need to be, right? Just don't panic. Turn around and hit the ball away or catch it, right? Like, because everything else is right there. The other thing, by putting these two clips back to back, which I'm happy we ended up doing, even though that wasn't the plan, is it kind of explains why there's so much patience with Brandon Stevens versus not so much with Marcus Williams, right? Where with Marcus Williams as a coach, you're like, I can't deal with somebody that doesn't want to do the main part of your job, which is tackle, right? I can't do that. I also can't deal with somebody that's not willing to fit within this defense of playing multiple positions. How can I deal with that? I'm having everybody do it. Everybody's asked to do it. It's part of what makes Ravens defense. It's being deceptive and moving around. So if I can't work, how do I work with somebody that doesn't tackle or maybe doesn't want to switch positions, or maybe he does, but just isn't as skilled as it, right? So that's why there's maybe you're quicker to bench that person. Whereas with Brandon Stevens, you can hear Jimmy Smith going to bat for him and trying to give him grace because it's like you're doing everything right. You're willing to do everything. And in this position, it's your confidence. And if you're confident, you won't panic. If you're confident, you can be calm. And so these coaches are probably seeing on tape, everything's right there for you, Brandon. Every skill, every technique, everything we're asking you to do. You've got the technique, you've got the willing attitude. It's just the confidence. So they're probably being more patient so as not to destroy that confidence because so much is right there to be dealt with. So much good is there. Whereas like on the other side, it just seemed like there was less to work with.
You know, too, Sarah.
Even though the talent is there.
You know, too, like people forget Brandon was drafted to be a safety. and he was a college running back. You
Yeah,
want to talk about positional flexibility?
seriously.
This guy embodies that. So no, I thought that was a great summary by you, having not really watched either one of those clips. I know you had heard bits and pieces, but just wanted to say thanks to Jimmy again for that opportunity to speak with him. And of course, that will not be the last. He also mentioned to everybody, and I wasn't aware of this. He and his family are moving back to Baltimore. So that's exciting. And maybe that means there'll be more opportunities for us and him down the road together.
That's actually surprising because I know he grew up in California, right? And that's where he is now. That's been his home forever. So interesting.